Hi everyone, happy Monday, happy New Year. So this is the first episode of 2023, and what better way to start than to talk about wellness and health goals for the year. And mental health and physical health are closely linked and they impact each other. And our today's guest is a wellness coach. And our goal with this episode was to introduce all the viewers and listeners to ideas related to food and other ideas related to stress, etc., and also people that will help you achieve your wellness goal. So, because when we talk about wellness, it's not just about mental wellness; it's physical and mental wellness. Because, as I said, both are linked, and they can always uh, impact each other. So, I really hope today's episode is going to help you understand the role of food and your mindset. Um, when it comes to wellness goals, right? So, yeah, listen carefully, and I hope you will be able to, make some changes in your lifestyle, in your mindset, in your diet as well. And I don't mean like negative changes. It's about the mindset. Even when it comes to diet, you indulge in certain types of food because of your emotions. When you're happy, you like to, this is what we do. When we are happy, we like to eat junk. When we are sad, we like to eat junk. So that's how it has always been. So, and then it has impact on your health. It also has impact on your emotions. So in this episode, you will learn uh, how these things are connected, or how these things play out in your life, and what are some ways that you can use to actually take charge of your life. And this episode you will learn what are some ways you can use to stop feeding your emotions and actually feed your body with nutrition. Today's guest is a wellness coach. She has helped more than 1,000 people with their mindset to achieve wellness goals. I present to you Victoria. Welcome, Victoria. And first of all, tell our viewers and listeners, how did you get started with wellness coaching? Why did you choose this walk of life? Like, how did it play out for you?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for so much for having me. So for me, I mean, if I actually think about it, I have been doing coaching in different capacities throughout my life. When I was younger, I used to do some mentoring and tutoring. And then when I was in high school, I actually coached some sports teams. So I've kind of had that capacity in that teaching and coaching, role for many years. And then for a while, I kind of went into more business management and that kind of thing. And I just, as much as I enjoyed it, I was never feeling quite fulfilled. And that's when I kind of went into more of the health and wellness industry and realized, there's a lot of need here. And I'm a lifelong learner myself. So the more I learned, the more I wanted to share with people what I'd learned, because a lot of it helped me and I knew it would help a lot of other people. So a few years ago, I officially kind of opened myself up as a coach for wellness and hypnotherapy, and it's been amazing ever since.
Okay, and you talked about hypnotherapy, and I also read on your website you have also talked about mindset, right? And
Mhm.
so I wanted to ask you, like, why is mindset important for health and wellness?
So mindset is actually huge, and it's something that I didn't realize early on. I mean, I was very big into the science of, the nervous system and muscles and how all your systems work together and that aspect of health and wellness, but I never really got the mind body connection piece until much later. And wasn't until I actually started doing hypnotherapy and learning about it that I realized a lot of the things we say and words we use, it really affects our mind, and then our mind decides what biological processes are supposed to happen. So it's interesting because we always think of our body and our brain often separated, but they're so in tune to each other. And, our thoughts will also trigger even like a cascade of different hormones to get released, or different muscles to react, or, your blood pressure. It could be numerous things. And so you can't really take mindset out of health and wellness, because when you do, that's where we get this model of treating an ailment or treating an issue without actually understanding the stem of where that issue is coming from. And I mean, stress, we know, causes a ton of different issues in the body biologically. It's been researched. And I mean, people who have unmanaged stress often suffer from anxiety, depression. Then on top of that, heart conditions and trouble like that, diabetes, blood pressure. There's so many different things. Insomnia is a big one. And all of these things and all these studies have proven that because of the stress, adding that to our life, we actually end up living shorter and we die sooner. So even though it's something that stress could be considered a mental issue, it's something that manifests physically. So you can't take the mindset piece out of it.
Right. And I think you said it so beautifully. And it's sort of, I think for people, it's a hard pill to swallow. They don't understand that, like you said, that, people think that stress is a mental issue, but actually, your body starts showing it, because I've also read that your body actually stores, trauma and your thoughts and everything. And also, I wanted to ask you, what is the role of biopsychosocial aspects in health?
So biopsychosocial is the model that a lot of wellness and health and medical systems are based off of here in North America, at least. And I would say most of the world at this point. So it's this idea that, pain or illness is not just caused by biological processes, but also by psychological processes and social processes. This is interesting because even though it's the medical model that a lot of doctors, nurses, healthcare professionals are supposed to be working off of, very little actually do. They really just focus on the biological and they leave the social and psychological pieces to a therapist. And that's fine, except for they don't really have a method to communicate well with a therapist. So there's this disconnect between mind and body and spirit, soul, whatever you want to call it. And in that gap, that's where a lot of chronic illness lies. And that's where a lot of chronic illness isn't able to get better. So a biological process of an illness or pain may be genetic factors or issues with a certain protein in your body or receptor, whereas psychological processes and issues related to that could be, stress at work, not having fulfillment in your job. It could be just past trauma as a child, all of those kind of things. And then your social aspects are, what's your relationship with your parents, your friends? Do you have a social life? What are the social influences of culture on you and, your experience? And all of that is going to play into what your chronic illness or pain or psychological illness looks like.
Right. And I also came across this concept of emotional eating, and I think you will be the best person to speak on this subject. So, why do you think people get addicted to food, and what are some sure tell signs of emotional eating?
So, emotional eating happens all the time. And we know this because we don't just eat for sustenance. We don't eat just to live. You don't eat, a lot of people can't eat the exact same thing every single day, even if nutritionally that's all you needed. And we don't do that because food plays a role in our experience. And I mean, the food companies have gotten really good at this. They recognize that, that's why chips are crunchy. That's why certain foods are smooth. That's why some things are extra salty. Like they recognize that the physical experience of eating a food will trigger certain emotions. And when certain emotions are triggered, that's where you can capitalize on the overeating and over consuming of something. So emotionally, I mean, food, because it is something we need for survival, it's not something we can step away from. And for that reason, it's a different type of an emotional connection and addiction than a lot of other substance abuse problems. Emotional eating and food addiction, it really, it's hard to deal with because you have to understand what is the underlying cause and what is the root emotion that's triggering you to want to overconsume, to want to eat in certain foods over other foods that may be more nutritionally, available for you. And once you can identify the reason behind it, that's when you can actually start to address the symptoms themselves and actually get better. But until you understand why you're doing what you're doing, you're kind of running around in circles trying to get solutions.
You also talked about chronic illness. So I wanted to ask you, like, what is the meaning of chronic pain? Because I've read on your website, you have talked about chronic pain also and how it is linked with emotions.
Mm-hmm. And so this is a tough topic because whenever I start talking about this piece, some people's minds just shut off. And the reason is that when you're experiencing chronic pain and chronic illness, oftentimes you've spent years trying to validate your experience and your illness, and because it's not always really visible. And when an illness or a pain is not super visible, it's not like it's a broken leg that a doctor can easily be like, oh, that's the problem. Then oftentimes in the medical community, you get really dismissed and brushed off. And in that, sometimes they throw around things like the phrase, it's all in your head, which I hate because it's not wrong. Yes, it is all in your head because your brain is located in your head and your brain is your central processing unit for everything in your body. Breathing in that sense is also in your head. So is, moving your knee is technically all in your head. It's all in our head. And the struggle is it's such a dismissive phrase that when I start to talk about mindset and emotions around pain, people want to shut off and say, she's not saying my pain isn't real. And that's not what I'm saying whatsoever. Your pain is 100% real because it is experienced by you. And it's hard when people can't see physically the pain that you're in. And so it's hard to communicate it with loved ones. But when we have certain emotions, and I'm going to say more negative emotions, they trigger our fight or flight response. Our fight or flight response triggers a ton of other biological processes to happen in our body. The original fight or flight response from more of like the, primal early man kind of society was that you had to fight for survival, you had to flee for your survival. So it's very visceral and it's very physical in the way your body does that. So one of the ways it gets you ready to either fight or flee is by prepping your muscles. So your muscles are literally you're using extra energy to get your muscles prepped and ready to move. The problem is in our everyday life nowadays, the stress we're having that could push us into a fight or flight response could be being stuck in traffic. And we can't physically fight or flee from that scenario. So our muscles are prepped and ready to go, but nothing happens. You don't get the energy exchange you're supposed to, which can actually lead to tension and circulation issues and all this other stuff physically in the muscles and tissues themselves.
You actually explained very beautifully, impact of stress on body. I want you to tell us more about it. Life is like for me, I feel like life is very busy, and I don't think a day can pass by I'm not stressed about something, because it could be something from my personal life or my professional life. So it's not really possible to get rid of stress completely. So what can somebody do to get rid of it in a busy life? Maybe not completely, but like to some extent.
Mm-hmm. So there's lots of great coping skills you can use. The struggle is, for me, I'm big on teaching you why it works, not just what it is, because I find, and I'm going to use stretching as an example. So most people, when they tell you to do a stretch, they'll say, okay, I want you to do the stretch and you're going to hold it for 30 to 45 seconds. You're like, okay, cool. How many people actually hold it though for 30 to 45 seconds? Very few, if any, And I was guilty of this before I understood it as well. When I learned in school that the reason you're actually supposed to hold it for 30 to 45 seconds is because you have a cell in the muscle that responds to stretch, so that you can't overstretch a muscle and hurt yourself. So what is actually happening is when you go into a stretch, that muscle extends, those cells get activated, and they tell the body, oh my gosh, we need to hold on because there might be something dangerous happening. When 30 to 45 seconds happens of that muscle being extended with nothing bad happening, those cells in the muscle fiber actually go, oh, sorry, we overreacted. We can relax and let go. So the actual stretch doesn't even occur until the 30 to 45 seconds. So when I explain that to clients, all of a sudden they're like, well, yeah, now I'm going to hold my stretch for 30 to 45 seconds because I recognize the time leading up to it is not actually the stretch. It's what happens after. So I take the same approach with a lot of my mindfulness tools because I recognize as well that being stressed out is something you just have to deal with. It's not about never being stressed out. It's about your body and your nervous system being able to go from a stressed out state to a relaxed state easily and going back and forth between them. That's what true resilience actually is. It's not about never being stressed. It's about being able to come down from a stressful event easily. One of the easiest and most available ways for everybody to do this is good breathing. It sounds hokey, but there is such a great biological response that happens in the body when you take those nice deep breaths. So when you use your diaphragm, so that sits underneath your rib cage, kind of like an umbrella, and it's supposed to go up and down. For a lot of people, it barely moves at all. When you actually use it well, though, and you're taking deep breaths where you're expanding your rib cage out, you actually trigger what's called your vagus nerve, which is the nerve that stimulates rest and digest processes. So the opposite of fight or flight. So it's actually one of the ways that you can help to shut off that fight or flight response without spending any money. And really, it doesn't take much time. So a really, really easy, accessible one for majority of people is box breathing. So some people who've been in therapy, they've been explained it before. It's a very accessible one. There's tons of different types of breathing, but this is the one I always start people on because it's usually the most accessible. It's literally taking a deep breath in for 4 counts, holding for 4 counts, exhaling for 4 counts, holding for 4 counts, and you just continue that cycle. It, again, will help to slow your heart rate, lower your blood pressure. Both of those things will signal to your body that you're no longer in a stressful event, and the stressful event biochemistry that's happening can stop. And you can actually ramp up the biochemistry for rest and digest. So that's a really, really simple one. There's lots of other ones you can do because breathing is not going to be the be all end all for every person. So everybody has to find kind of their own thing, but it's the one that I definitely start people with.
Another wellness tool that you use is hypnotherapy, I believe. So, what is hypnotherapy and what can it be used for?
Yeah, so hypnotherapy is essentially a type of therapy where we induce a state of relaxation so that your brain can go into what's called a theta wave state. So your theta brain waves are this state where you're incredibly suggestible and your brain learns. So we're actually in this state and at a young age for quite a few years. And it's this time in life where we need to learn things because, again, going back to where all of this originated from, we had to learn about our environment, safety. We need to learn about, collecting food, social structures and that kind of stuff. We still learn today, but we have obviously a little bit cushier of a life when we're not living off of the land, running from animals every day, that kind of thing. But it's still ingrained in us biologically. So those few years we're learning, we're in this theta wave state. So in the theta wave state, we learn things, and sometimes what we learn is not always accurate. And what I mean by that is, a fear of snakes is not universal. There's lots of people who are afraid of snakes. Being afraid of snakes is actually a learned experience. So we can learn something, and it's not that it's necessarily wrong, but it may not be right in every situation. And that's where we can set ourselves up to not be as successful because we're replaying some of these old programs we have that did serve us at one point, but now in our lives, it doesn't make any sense. And a lot of the times it's a subconscious programming. So it means that it's not the conscious brain that's doing it. So it's a very hard thing to consciously stop because it's an automatic process your body is doing because your body loves automatic processes. So hypnotherapy allows us to actually calm the conscious brain, allow the subconscious brain to come to the forefront. I always say in the driver's seat. And we actually are able to make a change at the subconscious brain, which allows you to have better success in whatever you're looking to achieve with less resistance because you're not doing it consciously or trying to force it to happen consciously.
And we can't talk about physical health and not talk about weight. And I have seen many people, who struggle to lose weight and gain weight. So there is always, a sort of ping pong game going on. So I wanted to ask you, like, what is your take on maintaining a healthy weight or shifting focus to either weight loss or weight gain? Because I think it's a like, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a tough subject because I work with a lot of food addiction, other practitioners. And so for starters, as a hypnotherapist, we don't like to use the word weight loss, only because the word loss in any other context is actually negative. You're not happy to lose your keys, you're not happy to lose your dog, you're not happy to lose a loved one, you're not happy to lose your book. So loss is not a word that our brain associates positive things with. In fact, it actually associates it with, I need to find that thing. So when one of the simple things we do in hypnotherapy is somebody, if they are purely coming for weight loss, I always call it weight reduction, or you're getting rid of weight or releasing weight. Because oftentimes, there's a lot of things that go into healthy lifestyle, and it is not healthy to be dramatically overweight. I don't think anybody who's struggled with their weight in that sense, and I'm not talking about like your doctor thinks you can lose 10 pounds. I'm talking about the, 75, 100 pounds that you need to lose to be in the realm of like a healthy BMI. And I mean, some of these terms I don't totally agree with, but at least they're a benchmark for something. And we recognize that healthy weight, low or high, is going to affect our health. And I mean, when you're needing to gain weight, like there's a lot of things that happen hormonally when you're not weighing enough and you're not eating enough. So again, but a lot of these things, when it comes to weight gain or weight loss, it's not as simple as just changing your diet, which is what everybody wants to say. And I hate when I see this marketing where it's like 3 easy ways to lose 15 pounds. And it's like, the goal shouldn't be to lose 15 pounds. The goal should be to change my lifestyle so I am happier with the choices I'm making nutritionally. Because at the end of the day, food is something that we need to survive and to have our systems working well. So if we're not putting in healthy food in our body, we're not going to be healthy. Food truly is the first form of medicine. And so when we can shift the mindset away from gaining or losing weight and into treating my body with care and love and giving it the nutrition it requires for the activities I'm asking from it, we can actually make a change in weight as a byproduct. So I never feel like weight gain, weight loss should be the reason. It's always part of the reason. Like most people can't say, they want to change their lifestyle for other reasons, but I do think that it will come when you change other things. And once you change other things, you'll also be way happier, and it makes it sustainable. So you're not doing the flip-flopping up and down of this weight gain, weight loss, weight gain, weight loss, because now you're even because you've recognized what it is that's actually causing you to gain weight and then to lose it and to gain it and to lose it.
I really loved you said that food is the first medicine, right? So, what is your take on the impact of processed food, sugar, etc., on health and wellness? Because this is something I've seen people just can't get rid of, Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's interesting. So processed sugar is cheap nowadays. They've realized how to make it really inexpensive. And because they've done this, they've been able to put in lots of things. And as they were experimenting with sugar, years ago, they realized there's an addictive quality to it. And now it's been studied and published in many papers that sugar is addictive and they've even compared it to other substances. And because you ingest it and it gets absorbed into your intestinal tract and then sent through your bloodstream, that's one of the reasons why it is so highly addictive, but not in necessarily that like way people are portrayed when they're chasing heroin or cocaine. However, when they've done studies, they've said if you were to ingest cocaine like you ingest sugar, you would have very similar addiction experience. And when it's interesting because I actually helped to quit sugar myself. And I noticed when I quit, you go through a physical withdrawal and you go through a mental withdrawal and you go through an emotional withdrawal. Like I had a good week where I was irritable, I was tired, I didn't feel good, I had, foggy brain, like all of these things. And I knew why I was having it at that point, but a lot of people don't notice that. So when you have a lot of sugar and processed foods in your diet, a lot of what you're doing is increasing all of your metabolic processes that are trying to, like your insulin and glucose, trying to manage those sugars. And then a lot of the processed food have highly pro-inflammatory ingredients in them. And so you're increasing that inflammation in your body. And then when you have increased inflammation with stress, with all of this sugar, it is such an amazing cocktail for dysfunction. Like it's one of the biggest things that you can do to get better is just by changing your diet. And you'd be amazed at how many people, when they make a lifestyle change like that, their psoriasis clears up, their GI issues clear up, their depression can clear up. Like there's so many things that can affect that you don't think are so intimately connected.
Amazing. And those are really some valuable insights. And I really hope our listeners or viewers are able to understand the impact of, processed food and sugar on not just body, but on mindset also. Because as you said, when we go on sugar detox, there is, mental withdrawal also. So, Victoria, like I also wanted to ask you if somebody wants to reach out to you and, because you assist them with the wellness goals. So what are some of your services and who can contact you and what can they expect?
For sure. So you can find me on social media at VIKKAH. You can also find me on my website, www.viktoriahamma.com. And I provide online and in-person wellness coaching as well as hypnotherapy. I even do in-person massage therapy and online and in-person personal training. So I bring everything together in my coaching series. Or if you're just looking for one specific service, I do any of those specific services. So again, it's VIKKAH on social media, or my website is www.viktoriahamma.com.
Amazing. And I also have these your social media handles and a link of your website too. So I'm gonna put them in the description box. I'll put the links in the description box. If anybody has like, if you have wellness goals for the coming year, I think you should definitely contact Victoria. So thank you so much, Victoria. Thank you again for doing this and sharing your valuable insights. Thank you so much.
Thank you.